Okay, we told you that Theodore Roosevelt was born in New York City on October 27, 1858. We said that he was the second of 4 children that were born to the Roosevelt family. Roosevelt's father was a glass importer, and the family was considered well-to-do. In other words, they had some money. We told you that in his early years, Theodore Roosevelt was known for his great energy, his great curiosity, and his determination. But we also told you that he suffered greatly from asthma and was very nearsighted, resulting in him having glasses at a very early age. Now, when Theodore was young, his father told him he would need a strong body to give his mind a chance to develop fully, and he didn't really have much going early. When he was 13 years old, he was tormented, or bullied in today's terms, I guess, by 2 boys. He felt very ashamed because he wasn't strong enough to fight back. His father realized that he better gut up, be a little tougher in life, or he was going to have a tough time. So his father built him a gymnasium in the family home. He overcomes his asthma. He builds up unusual physical strength. And after his high school years, he entered Harvard University in 1876 at the age of 18. While he was at Harvard in October of 1879, he met a young lady by the name of Alice Lee, who was the daughter of a wealthy Bostonian who owned his own investment firm. 1 year later, on Theodore Roosevelt's 22nd birthday, the couple were married. After graduating from Harvard in 1880, Roosevelt was really kind of unsure of what to do with his life. He first enrolled at Columbia University Law School, but the courses really did not interest him, and it was at that point that he decided to enter politics as a means of public service, and he joined the Republican Party. In the fall of 1881, at the age of 23, he won election to the New York State Assembly, and we compared that to Mike Greer, who serves in the Wyoming State Assembly. On February 14th, Valentine's Day of 1884, Roosevelt faced a double tragedy in his life. His mother died of typhoid fever, and his wife also died just 2 days after giving birth to their daughter. So he lost his mother and his wife on February 14th, 1884, and both his wife and his mother died in the very same house, just hours apart. Well, I mentioned in those days it was a little different to be a single father with a newborn child. That is not something really you took on. And so after the death of his wife and his mother, Roosevelt left his daughter Alice in the care of his sister. He left politics and just simply headed to the American West. And he ran 2 cattle ranches on the Missouri River in the Dakota Territory. We also mentioned that he was an avid writer. He wrote 2 books, a biography of Senator Thomas Hart Benton of Missouri, and he wrote a 4-volume series that was entitled The Winning of the West. And I believe that's where we ended her up, did we not? Okay, on December 2nd of 1886, Roosevelt remarried. He married a gal by the name of Edith Carew, and she was a childhood friend, someone that he knew when he was just a child. And he remarried Edith Carew on December 2nd, 1886, and they had 5 children, along with his own daughter Alice. So they had 6 total. They had 5 together, and they raised his daughter Alice. Well, obviously he had come back from the American West and remarried, and after his marriage, he resumed his political career. And the first thing he ran for when he came back from the American West was he wanted to become mayor of New York City. So he gets back from the American West, he marries childhood friend Edith Barrow, and runs to become mayor of New York City unsuccessfully. Does not win, unsuccessfully. Anybody know who's president in 1888? Come on, impress me today. Who's the president in 1888? Pretty Harrison. Who? Benjamin Harrison. And for that answer, I'm going to give you this wonderful book right here. The Pulitzer Prize winning photographs of our country's history. And so we'll talk about a lot of these next year. Nice job. Yes. So the president was Harrison. And what happened in 1888 during the Harrison presidency, he appointed Roosevelt to the Civil Service Commission. So after his loss in his bid to become mayor of New York City, Roosevelt is appointed to the Civil Service Commission by President Harrison. Now when President Harrison left office and President Grover Cleveland took over, he was so impressed with Roosevelt that he reappointed him to the Civil Service Commission, where Roosevelt served until 1895. So he loses his bid to become mayor of New York City. President Benjamin Harrison appoints him to the Civil Service Commission. When Harrison leaves office and President Grover Cleveland takes over, he reappoints Roosevelt to the Civil Service Commission. And Roosevelt serves in that capacity under those two presidents until 1895. Well, in 1895, he accepted the position of Board of Police Commissioners. And that was in his hometown of New York City. He accepted a position on the Board of Police Commissioners. It'd be kind of like a school board in a way. It was a board that monitored what? Police and police commissioners. And the reason he got on that board is he thought there was dishonesty on the police force in New York City. And so he got on that board to clean that up. Thought, police officers were taking bribes, maybe keeping money they shouldn't, etc. Thought there was some dishonesty in the police in New York City. And so he accepted a position on the Board of Police Commissioners to try to clean that up.
Did you still have that too?
I assume they would, yeah. Yeah, I assume they do. Well, in 1896, he really supported William McKinley for the presidency. And Roosevelt expected the new president, when elected, to give him some sort of a government appointment for his support. So during the election of 1896, Theodore Roosevelt really campaigned hard for William McKinley, expecting McKinley to reward him with some sort of a government position. And he did reward him with a government position. Does anybody want to guess what that position was? Who wants to guess what that position was? What? Who's guessing that position? No? 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 Assistant Secretary of the Navy. And for that outstanding answer, you're going to get a book entitled The Impeachment and Trial of Andrew Johnson. Congratulations. All right. I love it. I love it. So McKinley did reward him for his support by appointing him Assistant Secretary of the Navy. Now we know what he did there. He fought hard in that position to gain control of the Philippines, right? Sent George Dewey to Manila to take over the Philippines. He became a hero in the Spanish-American War, leading the Rough Riders. After the Spanish-American War, Roosevelt was elected governor of New York. He was elected governor of New York. Well, in the election of 1900, he teamed up with William McKinley and became Vice President of the United States. Okay, he teamed up with William McKinley in the election of 1900, became Vice President of the United States. And 6 months into McKinley's term, we know that Roosevelt assumed the presidency after McKinley's assassination. Now, after serving the remainder of McKinley's term, Roosevelt was actually elected to his own term as president in 1904. So after serving the remainder of McKinley's term, Roosevelt was elected to his own term in the election of 1904. And I'm going to tell you some important things that occurred during Roosevelt's own presidency, what occurred after he was elected to his own term. These are not what happened during the time that he served the rest of McKinley. These things happened. Okay, number one, the Panama Canal happened. Okay, the Panama Canal happened. I'll tell you a little bit about how this came about. Now, when Roosevelt took office, the two countries of Colombia and Panama were in a revolution. He took office, the two countries of Colombia and Panama were in a revolution. And he took sides. Who did he support?
Panama.
What? Why? Why would he support Panama? You think about it. So he wants to do what? He wants to build the... So why would he support Panama instead of Colombia? Because he thought Panama would what? Let him put a canal through their country. Very good. So the countries of Colombia and Panama are in a revolution, and President Roosevelt supported Panama in this ordeal, knowing that the country would support a canal in their country. So Roosevelt sent American ships to aid Panama, which helped that country prevail in their conflict with Colombia. And as a result, the Panama Canal began construction. Okay, so everybody can understand how that happened? Colombia and Panama are in a conflict. Roosevelt's going to support Panama in this conflict because he knows Panama will let him put a canal through there. So he sends American ships to aid Panama, and Panama prevails in the conflict with Colombia. So as a result of that, the Panama Canal began construction. Now this is kind of unusual. It was completed sooner than anticipated, and it was completed on budget. Nothing gets completed on budget. Not only was it completed on time, it was completed on budget. And the cost to build the Panama Canal at the time was $360 million. $360 million. What does the Panama Canal do, Paris?
So it connects the Atlantic and Pacific, so you don't have to go all the way around.
Very good. The explorers of early times would have appreciated that. Yeah, connects North America, it puts a disconnect, so to speak, between North America and South America, so you can get through from the Atlantic to the Pacific or vice versa without trouble. Now, the Panama Canal officially opened after Roosevelt left the presidency. It didn't get done until he was out of office, but he cited it as his greatest accomplishment as president. So even though it did not happen until after his term had ended, he said it was the greatest accomplishment of his presidency. Okay, second thing that happened, important thing during the Roosevelt presidency, were national parks. National parks. Now, during the presidency of Theodore Roosevelt, national parks in this country doubled. National parks in this country doubled during the presidency of Theodore Roosevelt. Now, when you look at all the things that happened concerning national parks during his presidency, probably the one most notable happened in Florida. And it was an island on Florida known as Pelican Island. Okay? This is probably the one he's most noted for. Was his saving of Pelican Island, which was an island of Florida. At the time, it was swampland. It was viewed as simply worthless at the time. Well, because of the number of birds that inhabited that island, Roosevelt declared it a federal bird reserve, and it was the first in the nation at that time. So Roosevelt was very impressed with the number of birds that inhabited Pelican Island in Florida, although it was viewed as swampland and worthless. And he declared it a federal bird reserve, the first in the nation. Now, when he did that to Pelican Island, what program that we know today that's in every state started? Well, I shouldn't say that. I got ahead of myself. This action began what we know today as What in the Nation? The Fish and Wildlife Program, which resulted in each state of what? What a result of? Game and fish. Now, for some reason, Montana calls it the fish and game, and you guys call it the game and fish So I always thought you guys were weird when I first moved here. But everybody's got their own thing. But your game and fish was a direct result of the Fish and Wildlife Program in the United States, which was established because of the actions of President Theodore Roosevelt at Pelican Island. So you would not have a game and fish here if it wasn't for Theodore Roosevelt. Okay, third thing that happened during the Roosevelt presidency was the advancement of the average citizen. The advancement of the average citizen. What's an average citizen? Brady? Someone that's in the, what, middle class people. Very good, Ackman. Okay? And Roosevelt had a great bond with average Americans. Even though he was born wealthy and had money, he really had great concern for the average American, middle class American. And this was his philosophy. You don't have to write this down, just listen. He said, "It is better for the working man to make enough money to support his family rather than a business making money for his company." Very much into the average man succeeding. And because of this philosophy, his administration became known in history as the square deal. This is one of the first times that a president named his administration. He called it the square deal. Anybody know of any other names of administrations since then? The New Deal was who? Franklin Roosevelt. Anybody know who the Fair Deal was? Harry Truman. How about modern republicanism? Who was that? No? That's great because he revolutionized it back. But who started it? Dwight Eisenhower. Kennedy administration was known as the New Frontier. Johnson administration, the Great Society. And then it kind of fizzled out for a while until Reagan came back and revolutionized modern republicanism and used that theme to get his administration going. Very good. But the square deal was one of the first times that a president named his administration. Okay, the fourth contribution or important thing that happened during the Roosevelt presidency was a national symbol. National symbol. This is quite a story. Oh, close. During his presidency, Roosevelt went bear hunting many times in the United States. And usually he became frustrated because he didn't see bear most of his hunt. This is kind of one particular hunt he went fishing. He went many times, but he was bear hunting one time, and he became very frustrated. He saw no bear during his hunt. And his aides that went with him finally spotted an old bear and actually captured that bear and tied him to a tree so the president could shoot his bear. So he couldn't find any bear. He's getting frustrated. So the president's aides went with him. They spotted an old bear at the end of the old term. They captured that bear and tied him to a tree. And they rounded up President Roosevelt and tried to get him to shoot the bear. And he said, "I'm not shooting that bear. There's no sport in shooting a bear that's tied to a tree." So he was an avid hunter. Well, political cartoonists made several cartoons about this story during the course of his presidency. And finally, a very wise toy manufacturer asked President Roosevelt for permission to make a stuffed animal in his honor. And Roosevelt agreed. Thus, the teddy bear was born. I still have my first teddy bear. I'm trying to decide whether I'm going to give it to my oldest son when we have their new grandchild in May. Thinking about it. And man, this thing's been through the mill. He's looking good. I'm going to even show you something. I think it'd be only fair if I brought it Tuesday and showed you. Okay? So those are the four important things that happened during the presidency of Theodore Roosevelt. So let's continue on. So, Roosevelt assumed McKinley's term, right? He was elected to his own term in 1904, and he decided not to run for re-election in 1908. Instead, he threw his support behind his really close friend, William Howard Taft. So Roosevelt chooses not to run for re-election in 1908, but instead throws his wholehearted support behind his good friend, William Howard Taft. Well, partly because of Roosevelt's support, Taft went on to win the election. Anybody want to guess who he defeated in that election? Anybody want to guess who he defeated in that election? Anybody want to take a guess of who he defeated in that election? Come on. Familiar name. William Jennings Bryan. Yes, he did. That poor guy was a good guy, but couldn't win a presidential election. And with his victory over William Jennings Bryan, Taft becomes the nation's 27th president. And here he is, right here, the only other president other than John F. Kennedy buried in Arlington Cemetery. You will see his gravesite in about a year. He was 27, yep. We're trying to figure out when we're going to go next year, and we're trying to kind of work this around everybody else's stuff, so we might be there in about a year. Might be there in about, I think we're thinking about maybe going the 15th of April. So. Now, after Roosevelt left the presidency in March of 1909, he sailed to Africa to hunt, and he stayed there more than a year. So after he left office in March of 1909, he sailed to Africa, and he hunted there for over a year. He did a couple of things. First of all, he shot a lot of big game animals. Anybody want to guess how many he shot during that year? Just throw one at us. How many did he shoot back in the 1 year? 200. 296 animals, including 9